Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this first online Amathuba Guided training for teaching teams. You are very welcome. Please note that this training is also recorded so that you can refer back to it at a later stage. We will also create a resource and possibly upload it to the SILT YouTube channel afterwards. So if at any stage you have questions, as Shanali said, this is a working session, so please feel free to unmute yourself. We will also keep an eye on the chat, so whichever one you're more comfortable with, please ask questions. We have limited time, unfortunately, so we have 90 minutes today, and then tomorrow we have another session of 90 minutes, and we literally want to just give you an overview of Amathuba, and I want to say this is almost like the Amathuba Light version. If there is any specific tool or area that we touch that you feel you need more detail on, there's several options available to you. Please feel free to either reach out to the LD if you're part of the migration process at this stage so that they can assist you. Alternatively, we are also in the process, the Amathuba webinar series is running, and each of those webinars is a deep dive session on a particular area on Amathuba, so you can go and rewatch those. If you cannot attend the webinar live, it's also recorded and will be uploaded to SIL's YouTube channel. And then the other option is also under staff resources, where there's several how-to guides available. So we've really tried to provide you with a range of resources that you can rely on. And as Shanali also said, we would like this to be a working session. So if you can have your device open and follow along in your own environment. If you have two screens, that's ideal. If you don't, maybe just another trick that you can do to create two screens for yourself. So if you can, if you want to join the webinar, for example, or this training session via your phone, and then maybe on your laptop or your desktop, whichever device you're currently using, then you can follow along in your environment. So we really want you to see where everything sits and get a real feel for Amathuba as we dive into the session. So again, very welcome here. We are happy that there are so many people in the room. Maybe if you're comfortable, you can say hi, you can just quickly switch on your camera, just wave. So it's all good just to see that there's some people in the room. It's always nice to connect with people. It's one of the problems I think that in the online space is that we feel we don't see people. So again, very welcome. Thank you, Shanaz, to the session today. Without further ado, I'm going to start sharing my screen and then we can start with the session. Okay, share screen. Let me just grab the right one. Okay, you should be seeing Amathuba Guided training slides. Okay.
Correct.
Yes.
Perfect, thank you. Okay. The first thing that I would like you and ask you to do is maybe if you can just log into amathuba.uct.ac.za. If you have logged into Amathuba before or maybe not, maybe in the chat, if you can also just tell us, are you brand new to Amathuba or have you tested the waters? Maybe just where you're at. Thank you, Shanali. She posted the link there in the chat for us, just so that we know exactly who is in the room and what we're dealing with. So I'm going to give you a few moments just to log into Amathuba. So that's literally amathuba.uct.ac.za. You type that in, the link should automatically change to /D2L/login. If you wonder about the D2L, that's just the holding company or the owner company of Brightspace. That's the original name of the platform. And as you know, UCT has decided to rebrand Brightspace to Amathuba. So Shanal is asking us, give us a yes if you have successfully logged in, just so that we know you are on the platform. Okay, see some thumbs up. Okay, thank you, Elmarie. I see new to Amathuba. Perfect, you're in the right place. I'm Kate, yes, great. So also new, perfect. So this is like literally introduction to Amathuba, and it's our privilege to walk you through this. I think if you stumble upon any issues, please also let us know. So I'm going to continue in the meantime while everybody is logging in. So feel free to just listen the next slide. I just want to say that in this training, there are we are going to focus mainly on native Amathuba tools. Even though these are the native, that's the regional Amathuba tools, most of these tools are optional. We're also in that place currently where we have moved over into a more blended environment after the emergency remote teaching. So maybe in your course, you are still figuring out or trying to settle the balance between what is online and what is not. There's also still resources available for that. If you ever need that, please reach out and ask, and we can give you some advice as to what would be suitable for you. So we are showing you a range of tools. There's no compulsion to use any of these tools. So this is, we're going to show you what is available, and you need to go and try and find what works for you and for your course, and specifically for your students. And as I said, please arrange for a consultation with the SALT learning designer to assist you. So today, what we're going to look at, there's going to be a brief Amathuba orientation session where I'm going to just talk you through literally how to navigate Amathuba. Then we'll move on to grades and groups. There will be some practical activities and especially demonstrations. So follow along in your environment. Strongly encourage you to do that so that you can see where the button sits and what happens if you click on it and on your device. So getting familiar, breaking the ice on Amathuba. And then we're also moving on to what we call activities. There's a cluster of several tools, and then those tools would be quizzes, discussion, and assignments. Tomorrow's session specifically will look at more student engagement tools like the calendar, email announcements, those type of things. And then the session will start with the content tool. It may feel a little bit backward, but when we dive into the grades and groups, I'm sure you'll understand exactly why we are proposing it like this. Okay, so Amathuba orientation. What is Amathuba? So Amathuba is very good because it gives us a consistent student experience. So from a student point of view, it's very good. We are also from UCT side, there's a orientation module template that we propose that you use, and you can use and copy and paste what you need from that, so that your students, when they open a course, they still feel that they are in the UCT environment and that not every course feels like an island on its own. So it also provides a consistent way of navigating courses. So students can use it's a class progress tool, which indicates to them how far they've come, what content they have looked at, the percentage-wise, etc., what activities they have done. Then also there's the Pulse mobile app. If you haven't done so somewhere during the training, I think it's a good idea if maybe you navigate to your Play Store on your phone. It's on both Android and iPhones. Just download the Brightspace Pulse app, and then you can download it. And I would strongly encourage you to make your students, they should be aware of the app, but you can also, again, remind them in your class that there is an app available. And in that app's very easy to use. I want to say Amathuba is specifically focused on the mobile experience because they know most students access content from their phones. So it's very easy to use, and it gives them quick access to things like course calendars, readings, assignments, evaluations, grades, and announcements. Okay, and then from a lecturer point of view, there's no downtime. Well, very little. So let's say 99.9%. Let's not aim for 100 days. So cloud hosting. So there's no more need to look for the announcements to say that the platform is going to be down Sunday between 8 and 12 or whatever it's the case. Then also very good student analytics and tracking that's available within the digital platform itself. There's also a very good built-in accessibility checker, which is of paramount us working with a universal design for learning. And so it indicates and flags to you the issues and also tells you how you can remediate some of those. And then you can also very, very easily restructure content with a drag and drop feature. So you can literally just, if you have module 1, 2, 3, and now you want to swap module 2 and 3, literally just drag 3 above module 2 and then just rename them. So very easy, and then also build simple and complicated courses using the same tool set. So just as you become more familiar with Amathuba and more comfortable, you can really apply it in creative ways. We will also make the slides available to you afterwards, so please don't feel that you have to write this down or even screenshot. We will definitely make this available to you. This is just literally a Vula and Amathuba tool comparison. If you have worked on Vula and you have maybe even used Vula extensively or some of these features, you will see that in most instances there is almost, I want to say, a direct correlation in terms of a tool on Amathuba. However, even though there is an equivalent tool, I want to say it's like medicine. Sometimes it's the generic, it's not the clone, which means that here and there might be small differences, and we just need to make you aware of what those differences are and what would, the implication be for you. Things that I would like to highlight, so you can see most of the things are literally like announcements, blogs. So the first big difference that I want to highlight is in terms of the chat room. There is no available chat room on the Amathuba platform. If you use something like this, we encourage you to create a similar experience using either discussions on Amathuba, or what you can do is you can also very easily integrate MS Teams with Amathuba, and then within the Teams channel, you can create a chat space for your students. So that's the first one that I would like to highlight. And then further down the page, let me just see, so you will see the rest there's fine. I'm just looking for the resources here on the next page. That's number 3. So you can see, for example, number 2, polls and survey, they're named differently, but they essentially do the same job. Resources, that's quite a big difference. So the resources in terms of how we know it on Vula, the equivalent experience thereof is more lecturer facing in the lecturer role on Amathuba, but it is not student facing. And tomorrow we can also look at how you recreate your resources in Amathuba if you would want to have a similar experience that you created on Vula on Amathuba. So it's not that it's not there, it's just we just need to create it in a different way. Okay, the Vula forums, the forum was more like the blog tool, if I recall. So then the blogs, that would be the blog. And that's then. So no, discussions is similar to the discussion. Shanali, I'm talking under correction, yeah.
Apologies, I was problem solving in the background. With the Vula forums similar to discussions, yes.
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 Okay.
So the old Vula forum was a discussion tool, and then it got renamed to discussions. So it should be fine. Apologies, I was just trying to get someone on the system in the background. Thanks, Aisha, for the question.
Okay. Then the next one I want to highlight is just, you will see that it says lessons at the bottom on page 1. So your Vula lessons will be content in Amathuba, and that is what we're going to look at tomorrow. So a slightly different way, we're going to introduce you to the concept called chunking as well. And then one other thing that I can just highlight is that currently, if the student experience looks slightly different to the lecturer experience when you create your courses. Now, next year, there will be an update so that that's a more seamless process, and we will show you. So if you are curious as to what a student experience looks like on Amathuba, I strongly encourage you, if you now log into, or if you are logged into Amathuba already, and you go to the course, there's an icon that looks like a waffle, a Belgian waffle with the various dots. We call that the course selector tool. You navigate there, and then you will see that you should automatically be enrolled for the Amathuba self-paced training. And you are welcome to click around in that site. If you want to complete the whole course, that's also good. It's not compulsory though, but we strongly recommend it. But that will give you an indication of exactly what a student experience looks like. Okay. So just what does the interface look like? So I have a screenshot here, but if you want to literally, if you're open in Amathuba, at the top, you will see there's the Amathuba logo. That's called the home button. You will see it's actually an icon. So if you hover over it, it will always bring you back to what we call the main Amathuba landing page. And this is like your main page. Now, if you think of a book, this is your book cover, and this will always bring you back to that book cover. And from here, you can navigate. There's the course selector tool I was referring to. If you click on that, you will see all the courses that you are enrolled for, and your profile that you can go and change. Then very interesting to note is that there's two different nav bars. So this top bar is called the mini bar. That is always consistent regardless of where you're at in Amathuba. The second one, the main nav bar, that changes when you click into a course. Now, this is such a subtle difference. If you use Amathuba quite regularly, you won't even notice it. But if at one stage you think that I found something on this bar and it's not there, just remember that on the main landing page, the main nav bar looks slightly different. I'll just show you the difference now. So Brightspace, there's a lot of Brightspace resources available if you want to click, but I would strongly recommend that you use the customized ones that we have created at SILT. That's available under staff resources on the SILT page. So please navigate there, and then you can see there's the calendar. You can discover courses, the quick eval tool. You would also be shown, and then there's also student support that's available. There's a welcome banner here that will always be present, and then the main Amathuba landing page has several widgets. So just moving on to the next one, if you click into a course, so if you hover over the waffle page and you select one of those courses, for example, the Amathuba self-paced training site, you will see that now it has the course nav bar. And this is more or less, the students will also see this when they're in the courses, just with slightly less functionality because they're not in the lecture role. Your course home, you always click back here. Your content, always navigating. If you want to go back to your content page, you just simply click on content. There's the activities, course info, and you will see some of them have drop-down menus. And if you click on those under activities, for example, you will see that's the quizzes, the assignments, etc., that will appear then. There's a course banner that you can customize for your course if you prefer so, and then your content will just be displayed here under what we call widgets. Just a note that if I click to the homepage widgets, we do have a default that would be kind of a standard, more or less, Amathuba landing page that you have for your course when a course is created. However, it can be customized. And if you would want to either integrate MS Teams, for example, or if you want to add a quick guide that we call, it's a welcome message, I want to say a higher grade type of welcome message, please reach out to your learning designer. All of these are also in the help guides, but I just wanted to make you aware that you have options in terms of when you create your homepage. And then without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing just so that Shanali can get ready to share her screen. At this stage, are there any questions? Okay. Renee.
Hi, I just want to know on the resources, are we going to again be able to link to the library with citation pages, etc.?
Yes, and there's, I don't know if you really have extensive lists of resources. You can even embed Leganto. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that tool, but definitely yes. So we will show you tomorrow also how that linking works, because the linking can be done from, I want to say, almost various places. So definitely yes. Okay. Thanks, Shanali.
Thanks, Nadine. Colleagues, before we go any further, I just want to check two things, because this will help me decide how much detail to get into today. First of all, can I ask if you have used groups in Vula before, either to manage project groups or tutorial groups or anything of that nature? Can I ask you to just jump into the text chat for me and let me know if you have used groups in Vula before? So you can just give me a yes in the text chat if you have used groups before. And I see Jane is saying she hasn't. Thank you. Okay, so we've got a mixed bag, but a surprising quite a lot of no's. Okay. Okay, thank you very much to everyone in the room who's responded. My next question for you is, have you used the gradebook tool in Vula previously? Have you used the gradebook tool in Vula? Okay, lovely. So many people in this room use the gradebook tool. Okay, great. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start today's session with, or my part of today's session, with a little bit of talking about the groups tool in Amathuba, and a little bit of talking about the grades tool. And then what I want to do is go into Amathuba and show you how to group people and show you how to grade people in the tool itself. Okay, I'm not going to be able to see chat for a little while, Nadine. So if you don't mind, please just alert me to any questions that are happening in the chat. Otherwise, colleagues, you are more than welcome to just unmute at any point, and I can respond from there. Let's drag this little beastie out the way. Okay. So the system that we're proposing in terms of Amathuba's use of grades and groups is that you start your, when you get access to your site, whether that's through the facilitated process or whether that's through an auto migration process, we would like to suggest that you start on what we would call kind of the back end. So we would like you to consider starting with creating any structures for groups that you may need, creating any structures for a grade book that you may need, and possibly even creating any structures for example, marking rubrics for assignments. What that means is that as you build the rest of your site, you can automatically, as you go, link activities to groups. For example, you can link the assignments tool to groups. So students are submitting a group assignment kind of scenario. You can link the discussions tool to groups. So the groups have discussions within a specific group only and not across the whole class. Similarly, if you set up your gradebook first, think of it as setting up the formula in an Excel spreadsheet, the kind of formula line at the top. If you start off by creating that first, it means that any kind of accessible item, these three in the middle here, any kind of assignment, quiz, or discussion, when you create it, automatically gets linked to the gradebook itself. As people grade it, or if it's automatically graded, students can see their marks straight away, or within the time span that you enable in the gradebook tool. And that simply allows you to be sort of allows you to not have to go back and build a gradebook in between, say, building a quiz or building a discussion or so on. It makes things like your advanced functions around, for example, gradebook, etc., a little bit easier to manage. And it also means that if you invite outsiders into your course, guest lecturers or external examiners, for example, it means that instead of them finding items through the contents, they can find those items directly through gradebook and groups, for example. I'm going to pause there for a second and just say, are there any questions? So our proposed suggestion is that if you are building your site, that you definitely start by building grades and groups first. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to show you a little bit of how you can do that. So any questions? Not seeing anything in the chat. Okay, moving on. So in Vula, there were 3 different ways that you could create groups. You could use 3 different tools. And what ended up happening generally was that people used different tools for different kinds of groups. But in Amathuba, there is a single tool called groups. What you can do in that tool is you can create different categories of group. So you might have, for example, project groups or tutorial groups or week 3 groups or something of that nature, depending on the pedagogic structures of your course. You can, using the groups tool, either manually or automatically enroll students, or you can allow them to self-enroll. So all of those things are options. And then you can create a certain number of groups or create groups with a certain number of students per group. So you can either say, I want 15 groups because that is all the number of tutors that I have money for, or I want groups of 20 students or 25 students. So that is exactly the same functionality as you have access to in, or have, as you have historically had access to in Vula around groups. So what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to walk you through the process of setting up groups. This slide has the specific instructions that you can use in your site to create groups. But I think I'm going to go into demo mode rather, and let's see if we can create a group together. So I'm going to invite you onto Amathuba, and I'm going to invite you to go and find a specific course. And I'm going to do this the lazy way today. Actually, let's not do it the lazy way. Let's do it the healthy way. If you are on your Amathuba site, so if you are on the homepage at Amathuba, and you know that you are on the homepage because the first widget you'll see says My Courses. Okay. If you are on a course site, which we're going to go to now, you will find that this changes. This doesn't look the same. And as Nadine said earlier, the menu bar changes. So please go and have a look. I'm sorry about the naming. It says Shanali Online Training Course, and it should be Kate Whitaker's in the room. Kate, I'm sorry, I haven't been able to add you to the site because I think you've joined us today with a Gmail address, but everyone else should have access. Kate and Amanda will have problems. Everyone else should have access to a site that says Shanali Online Training. And the way that you can do it is you can go click on the all and scroll down until you find it. That's one way to do it. The other easy way to do it that I'm going to offer you if you're feeling a tad lazy is in the text chat for Zoom. There's a link to the site, and if you click on that, it should take you straight there. Please let me know in the text chat if you have any problems getting to that. Nadine, I have emailed the help desk about Amanda's access issue. She's a new staff member and I just can't see her on the system.
Oh, thanks, Shanali.
And Kate is joining us with a Gmail address. But perhaps you could see if the help desk can give Kate access in the meanwhile.
Kate says in the chat, no problems.
Oh, okay, awesome. Maybe Kate's already on the system. Super. Okay, so colleagues, what you should be able to see then is this is a bit of an empty site because it's just a sandbox site for us to do various activities today. And you know that you are in a course site because number one, navbar has changed, there's now a billion different things. And there's a little thing called course content here. And you'll see that that is obviously empty at the moment because this is just a training site. But what I want to show you in this site is first of all, how to manage. I get not authorized when trying to access Shonali's link. Nadine, would you try and add El-Marie for me, please?
Yep.
Thank you so much. Cool. So if we go to manage site, manage course, we want to go to course admin. There is a selection of these items over here. This may well change. Okay, these items are likely to change over time as we get a better indication of what people are using. But for now, we're going to go to course admin. And when we click on course admin, what will come up is a selection of different elements that we can do as staff members with that particular course site. And the one that I'm going to demo today is this one called groups. We will all together a little bit later add an assignment. We will all together a little bit later look at the grades tool and add something to grades. Well, you'll add your assignment to grades a little later as well. So let's go to the groups tool. And that's going to pull up a wizard. And I apologize, it is a little slow. You have not defined any groups. Click a new category to create a group category. So what the most common one at UCT is that we might want to be creating tutorial groups. We might also want to do things like create practical groups or project groups. So this is weekly tuts, for example. I would always leave some kind of description here, just for the sake of anybody who is trying to follow up perhaps on the course site the next year or change of admin person in charge of the course site. I'd always make that clear. Enrollment of groups. So number of groups, no auto enrollments. If we click the little down arrow, these are all the possible ways that people could be added to the groups. So we could have certain groups of a certain number. So that would be, say, groups of 20 students, 20 groups, groups of 20 students where they self-enroll, 20 groups where students can self-enroll. I suspect that for most of the groups at UCT, like TUT groups and PRAC groups, we're going to look at self-enrollment options. It's only generally for the project groups where we want to specify a number of groups, like I've got 20 projects running and my students are going to come to me with a list of 5 people and I'm going to enroll them so that we don't have them confusing each other with enrollments. You can also set a number of groups and a capacity of groups. So you can say 20 groups with 15 people in them and students can self-enroll. So you can do both of those options. And I'm not going to get into single member specific groups because I don't think that's necessarily useful. So for example, this one that I've selected says number of groups. Actually, let's pick one that's more likely to be used. Let's say groups of 15 students. And I would say that I want my TUT groups to be 20 students big. And these are my TUTs. So you have to name this or else it's just going to say groups and going to cause you endless problems. So tutorial, and then it will then add like a number after that. You can do things like say when this process starts and when it ends. So you might say it starts at the beginning of halfway through week 1 and ends by the end of week 2, or ends by the beginning of week 2, so that your students are kind of into their TUT groups quite quickly. And then if you click this little box here, once you've set enrollment dates, you can allocate unenrolled users after self-enrollment expiry date. So let's say, for example, at the end of a predefined amount of time, there are 10 students who still haven't enrolled. You can enroll them if you click that. Okay, and then it will say to you, you can set up some discussion areas or assignments. I would not do these steps now. I'm most likely to do these a little bit later on in the process. Sorry, just gonna move that out the way. And then you click save, and that will create the groups in the background. I'm going to pause there for a second and see if there are any questions about that grouping process. So at the moment, you'll see that I've only got one TUT group here because I have 20 participants in the site. And so it's decided, because I said 20, it only needed one. If I decided I didn't like this, I could click on it there, and I could, this is just generated by the system. So you can change the group name here. You can view the enrollment. But one of the things that's difficult is once you've created these, you can't just edit your settings, particularly not once students have started. So what I would strongly suggest is that you think through quite carefully in advance what it is that you want your students to do. There's an edit category up here that allows me to change. No, the edit category does allow me to make changes. So let's change this to 10. But that's because none of my students have started signing up. Once they've started signing up, it will be problematic. Once this fills up with people, then it will create an alternative. What can be tricky with these is things like figuring out how to communicate timings and so on to your students. So if you want to say, make this a Mondays TUT at 10 o'clock, you can rename this one by clicking on it and then renaming it here. So that will be Monday at 10 a.m. And then your students can select accordingly. Okay, pausing for questions. It's theoretically works very, very similar to the Vula version. It's exactly the same logic in the background. It's just a little bit, you just have to edit. You don't edit on a single list, you edit on this list that develops here. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions. I'm not seeing any hands or hearing any unmuting. Okay, so I think we'll move on to grades, which is one of the other key tools that people have indicated that they have used a fair amount. The gradebook tool links to assessed activities in Amathuba. And the activities that, or the tools that Amathuba uses for assessment is the assignments tool, very similar to the Vula assignments tool, quizzes, which is akin to the tests and quizzes tool in Vula, and the discussions tool. And that is exactly the same pattern of tools that were accessible and linkable to a gradebook in Vula. So that is not something that's new to us. You can create grade items that are not linked to assessments that actually happen in Amathuba. So let's say, for example, one of the items on your assessment schedule for your course is a live performance or a practical that your students do in a lab that is observed by somebody and given a grade. That you can create a grade item for in Amathuba, but you don't have to have, and you can input the grade for it. And that's quite a useful element, particularly in courses where there are both online assessments or assessments that students submit online and assessments that they do in other contexts. And just like with Vula, grades can be hidden from students or released or made visible to them according to your particular kind of class plan. Some people like students to see grades straight away, just as they're marked. Some people would prefer to say we release all the test marks or all the quiz marks on a particular day at a particular time. It's worth noting that if you have a very complicated weighting strategy, and by weighting, I mean WEIGH, like weighting of marks rather than weighting in a room. If you have a complicated weighting strategy, just as is the case with, for example, Vula, you will find that Amathuba has limitations around complicated weighting strategies. So for example, we've heard from staff that they have policies like there are no makeup tests. What they simply do is they take your final mark for the exam and they plug that into the test that you missed so that it doesn't disadvantage you in any way. And then they calculate your final grade based on that. We've had staff say things like when students come to them with a particular personal problem, they will simply give students like a pass, you don't have to do this particular activity, and then they'll calculate that student's tutorial mark out of 5 tuts instead of 6 tuts. So that kind of flexibility is very difficult to achieve in an LMS because all of the LMSs come out of a very, fairly, I think, simplistic understanding of fairness, which is that you treat everybody exactly the same, as opposed to fairness being that you kind of an equity fairness where you create the conditions for each student to succeed as well as they can under the circumstances. So I just want to flag for you, there are limitations to the grades tool. They are exactly the same limitations as you would have had, unfortunately, in Gradebook and Vula. So if you have particularly complicated weighting systems, then I would encourage you to perhaps consider running an Excel spreadsheet, frankly. Okay, let's have a little bit of a look. So we do have a slide on this, which we'll share with you in a moment for how to manage the grades and how you can set that up. But what I want to do is I want to give you an opportunity to do a couple of things. And then having done those things, I'm going to show you how to work in Gradebook a little bit. So what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to go to your Amathuba browser. And I'm going to ask you to, in your Amathuba browser, to just go to my course, so Shonali online training course. And when you get there, what I would like you to do is I would like you to go to activities. And I would like you to go to quizzes. And what I've done is I've set up a bunch of little different kinds of quizzes because I want us to see what this looks like when we do those. And what we're going to do now is let's just look at how to organize these. So I've got multiple tests and I've got multiple tuts. And what we need to do first of all in this particular arrangement is I have made all the tests, but I haven't made the tuts. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to go tests and I'm going to create a new category called tutorials. And I'm going to save and close it. So now I've got in my gradebook 2 types of activity. I've got tests and I've got tuts. And if I go to the grades item here, there are a number of things I can do. I can either integrate, let's start at the beginning. I can integrate, and you'll see at the moment on this course, there's only one person in the course in student mode, and that's me. Or I can manage grades, and that would mean changing the weighting. We're not going to talk about organization schemes, I don't think at the moment. We could do a new scheme, but I think what we should do is we're going to go straight to setup wizard. And the grade setup wizard is a really good place to start. And it talks you through all of the different questions or items that you need to have answers for in order to set your grade book up. And so if you click on start over here, you can decide what kind of grading system you want. This is the first and most important choice you will make. You can decide if you want a weighted system where you have different categories of item, and each of those categories of item are, you can weight the category. So for example, assignments in this case is weighted 20%, but your mark for your assignments category comes out of 2 assignments which are weighted equally, okay? And then in this case, they've got a final grade of 80. This is just an example. This doesn't block you to it in any way. Alternatively, you could be somebody who works with marks or points, and then 40 points come out of this, 20 points, that gives you your mark out of 40, your final exams out of 200, and your final grade is out of 240 points, which you can then very easily convert in an Excel spreadsheet when you send your mark sheets through to participants, or you can input a custom formula. Of the 3, the one that people most commonly use is a weighted example, but you could also explore the formula example. I'm not going to do a points today. I'm going to do a weighted example. And there are, again, 3 options here. So you can decide whether or not the final grade is simply calculated by the grade book. You can decide whether you want to adjust or modify users' grades before releasing them. This allows you to go in and perhaps put in a penalty for something. It allows you to go in and remove a penalty for something, and so on. And then you can decide whether or not you want grades automatically released. And you can choose between those 2. And then that is an alternate option. This is a separate case. So I'm going to say I want to do calculated grades for now based on my grade book, and I'm going to go continue. And it's going to ask me generally, do I want them to drop ungraded items, i.e. don't count them, or do I want to treat them as 0? And that's simply a decision that you need to make. And then, do you want this to update as you go, or do you want it to update when you tell it to? And I'm going to say keep it updated. And then, do you want to work by percentages, which is the default scheme? Yes. And let's go continue. Number of decimal places. I think generally I really don't want decimals at all, so I'm going to put in 0 decimal places. And I'm going to go continue. And it gives us a range of things that students would see. I don't want them to see a points grade. I just want them to see, actually they could see that. And a grade scheme symbol and number of decimals. They're obsessed with decimals. I'm going to go no. Characters, that's fine. And display final grade, and I'm going to go continue. And this gives me a summary of the decisions that I have made. At any point before students start submitting submissions, you can go back and change any of these up until the point that your students start submitting things, and then it gets a little bit more complicated. Okay, and then you're ready to create, apologies, I'm just going to move the little Zoom thingy out the way. You're ready to create grade items and categories. And so what I want to do is I want to create a new grade category. And that is, for example, tutorials. And I'm going to say that's going to count for 50% of my final mark, and save it and close it. And then I want to create another one. And my next category will be, I want to create a practical. And maybe that's going to count for 50%. And I can save that and close that. And you can see that I can mess around with each of those. And then what I can do is I can simply link these. So I can edit those and make sure that they link. And what this does, which is quite nice, is that it simply gives you an indication of any problems that you are having in terms of setup. Under the More Actions bar, there's also an opportunity to reorder elements and make specific things visible to users, to hide things from users, and so on. Okay, I'm going to pause there for a second. I'm going to stop sharing. And I'm just going to check. Are there any particular questions at this point? Renee, go for it.
So Shanali, it's a very complicated formula to create. Can you still create a simple gradebook that you can export to an Excel spreadsheet and do some, sort of just enter marks, especially the marks that you sort of need to put a pass or something. So can you still create no formulas, just all your assignment marks, go into a gradebook and export it?
So on that wizard setup, or what you can do is you can just do that through the integrates.
Okay.
And you can add items to that. Perhaps the easiest way, actually, if you just want to say, maybe you've got an assignment that's worth 30 marks and a test that's worth 50 marks and a tutorial that's worth 20 marks. What you can do is you can simply add those using the actual tools. So you can add those using the assignments tool or the test or the quizzes tool and so on. And if you're going to export and then work in Excel, then you can do that. You can also start in Excel and then import.
Okay.
Yeah.
And where is the export button to Excel
So the import and export buttons are under integrates. And you'll see up at the top of that, there's an import export. When you click on integrates.
Sorry, I'm a bit lost. I don't know where we'll...
Sure. Sorry, let me reshare my screen quickly. Apologies, folks. I'm just resharing my screen. Take me one sec. Okay, so I'm in grades at the moment. I've obviously been messing around here, so there's all sorts of instructions for me to go and fix things at the moment. But when you click on the integrates tab over here, there will be import and export options. And then you can further manage your grades here by, you just click on the manage grades, and then that will allow you to, for example, edit elements. And that allows you to edit things like weighting, for example. Renee, did you find the import export?
Yes, I found it. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you. I just wanted to check because one of the things that Amathuba is quite nice at is that it reveals things, it reveals options for you as you go along. So when you make a choice, further choices unfold based on the choice you've made. So it doesn't show you everything up front. It shows you the items that are relevant to your particular choice. Colleagues, any other questions about gradebook at this point? Okay, so two key tools then that are a good idea to set up in advance of populating any kind of content or locating any specific activities on your site is the groups tool, the grades tool. They both work logic-wise very, very similarly to Vula. And so we would strongly suggest that you set those up before you get into populating your site in too much detail. I think it's now, where are we? It's 11 o'clock, and I suspect that we should take a little break. Is it okay, colleagues, if we take sort of a 10-minute comfort break. Stand up, stretch, head, give your body a moment to just be in a different space. We'll come back at 11:10. And at that point, Yakuluntu is going to join us and going to chat us through the 3 activity tools in Amathuba, namely assignments, quizzes, and discussions. Okay, shall we pause there? Thanks, folks. Please feel free to put any questions so long into the text chat, and we'll try and answer them as we go. Thanks, everybody. See you in 10 minutes. Okay, colleagues, it is just after 10 past. Yakuluntu, are you there?
Yes, Shonali, thank you.
Thank you. Whenever you are ready,
Cool, I am ready. Thank you so much.
feel free to share your screen when you're ready to go.
Hi, colleagues. My name is Yakuluntu. I'm a trainee learning designer here at SILT, and I'll take you guys through the activities tool. Let me share my screen. Please let me know once you see my screen and you're seeing the slides.
Yep, we can see slides.
Okay, let me see if I can have the slideshow. Yes, so I'll be taking you guys through the activities, as Shonali mentioned. Activities are the things that the students would need to do in your course, and in Amathuba they are clustered together as discussions, assignments, and quizzes. So essentially, your assignments within Amathuba, the assignments tool in Amathuba is used to set up assignments for your students, where your students can, submit whatever hand-ins that they had. The assignments tool is available under the activities tab within Amathuba on the main nav bar. And essentially, your assignments, your assignments can come with different file uploads. They can be tutorials, projects, and other hand-ins. For example, sick notes or permission forms. So the assignments tool, as I said, it's available within the nav bar. The assignments, they can be graded. They are accessible. And the marks are published within the grades tool. And as Shonali has mentioned, the recommended best practice is to have them set up your grades tool first and then associate your assignments with existing grade items. So you can also enable Turnitin for your students. And when you do enable your Turnitin, you can have your students, if you want to, have them access that report. The students can access the similarity report. And also with the assignments tool, really, it has an improved marking interface compared to Vula, but essentially it is identical to the assignments tool in Vula. And then now we move to the discussions. So the discussions are also quite similar to Vula, the Vula forums. You can create your forums with one or more topics, and also within, the topics can also be subdivided into threads. So the discussions tools, you use them rather to, create online forums for your students where they ask questions, you post replies to the tutor, there are prompts, or you're really having a discussion online. So the discussion tool is also within the activities tab, within the nav bar, and it is divided, as I said, into the forums. There's topics, and then there's threads. The forums, they serve to organize your groups, and then your forums, they serve to organize the groups, yes, the groups of topics, and then the topics, they hold the threads, which really are a chain of posts and replies written by you and your students. So the organization of your forums and your topics is really up to you. You may, for example, choose to have one forum per week, or, you know, you may have multiple topics within a week. And what's nice with the discussions tool is that your students can also post anonymously, if that's an option that you want to have. You know, the groups can also have, you know, they can have private discussion spaces within allocated groups. And within your course, if you have rubrics, you can also attach rubrics within the discussions tool. And also, as we've mentioned, that the discussions tool is also, discussions are accessible activities, so they can be graded. And then we also have the quizzes within the activities tab. They're also very similar to the Vula's test and quizzes. You can set up different sets of question types, your MSQs, hotspot questions, matching items. You can also choose to reuse. If you had maybe a question library that you had within Vula, you can reuse those questions. And also you can also have a random selection of those question pools. And you can also upload those question pools, and I'll show you guys quite shortly. And with the quiz, that what's different with the quizzes tool within Amathuba is that there's no negative marking. So really, rather, the next slide is the instructions. What I will do now, I will go into demo mode. Let me see if I can escape. I will go into demo mode to show you guys the discussions. Where is, to show you guys. So as I've mentioned, that the discussions tool, they are within the activities, activities tab. And there's a drop down within the activities. There's the three tools: the assignments tool, discussions tool, and quizzes tool. So I'll start rather with the discussions tool as per the slide. So within your discussions tool, when you land within the discussions page, you can see that there's the new. So if you want to create a new discussion for your students, as I've said, there's forums, there's topics, and there's a thread. And I've explained the different organizations of those for you. So really, the discussions, when you locate to your discussions, you can either create a new forum or a new topic. So for example, you choose to create a new forum. You would name, for example, your forum, maybe maybe, as I said, weekly. Maybe you have week one discussion, and you have a description. It's always good to have a description, instructional text for your students, so that they know exactly what is the prompt, what are they supposed to be discussing on, what is the discussion around. And within the description, you can have, you can attach, you can have your audio. There's just various tools that you can use here. And as I said, you can allow anonymous posts. It depends whether you want to grade or it's non-graded activity. The users, so this also says here, users must start a thread before they can read and reply to other threads in each topic. So you choose what works best for you in your class. And do you display the forum descriptions and topics, or you check what you need, the options that you need here, and then you would save and close. So let's save and close, for example. So at this point in time, I'm sorry, I should have said, I hope that you guys are also practicing, and I don't have access to the chat, but that you guys have access to Shonali's online training course, and that you are also following practically. Hello?
Hi, can I ask if can you now link so that you can link this now to groups? so that a group can have a specific topic and people can then post again on the main topic?
Thank you. I don't know who was asking the
Yakuluntu,
question.
that was Renee. That was
Renee.
Renee's voice that you heard. Are you happy to answer that question? Would you like me to grab it quickly?
Please grab it quickly as you've
Sure.
explained the groups, a really easy
Sure, not a
transition. Do you
problem.
want me to stop sharing my screen?
No, you stay where you are.
Okay.
So, Renee, you can link specific forums to particular groups. Yakuluntu, would you just go to group and selection restrictions?
Yes.
And section restrictions, and you can select particular groups there. And you could have specific, you could have like a weekly discussion forum where anyone can participate, and then you might have a TUT1, TUT2, TUT3 forum where different people can participate, different groups have access to participate. Does that answer your question, Renee?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Yakuluntu, back to you.
Thank you, Shania. Thank you.
No
Awesome.
problem.
So yes, as I mentioned, as Renee has asked, that your discussions, they can be grouped. You can students can have discussions assigned to their tutorial groups or project group. So now I'll move on to quizzes. So the quizzes are also located within the activities tab. There's a drop down menu, and then you click on your quizzes tool. So with your quizzes tool, you can create a new quiz. Create a new quiz. And then when you create a new quiz, you can name it, for example, week 1, or maybe have your course code. Course code quiz 1. And then you'd have your category. If your quiz, for example, is grouped into maybe various topic or tutorial group, and then you add to add the questions, you use the add or edit questions button. You click on it. So when you add, you have options here to import from an existing file. As I said, if you already have a question library that you want to reuse for your students, you can upload it as a CSV file and it would display, or you can add a new question, manually add your questions. So for example, you want to add a multiple choice question. So to add your multiple choice question, say for example, you want to ask, say the question says, how many days in a week? How many days in a week? Maybe 5, 3, maybe 7, 2. So you would be able to have that option, those multiple choice questions, and you can also add an answer right there, and you can also randomize the order. And you can also have, as I said, the grading. You can have your marking system, whether you're using weights or your point system. As I've to reiterate that there's no negative marking within Amathuba. So maybe you'd use the possible solution rather would be to use the multi-select or the matching or ordering in Amathuba for those question types where you have maybe right minus wrong selections for that instance. So let's say we save and close. So the right question, how many days in the week? Maybe say 5, and then you save. You save. And then to add also, let's say adding another variety of maybe you want to add a true or false question, you'd have the same principle with your quizzes. So just a minute. I'm going to pause here and ask, are there any questions thus far?
Hi.
Sorry. Yeah.
This is Jane Franco. Sorry, my question's actually going a bit back. What is the difference between a forum and what was the other thing?
Discussion?
Yes.
Same thing, Jane, just different histories of naming. So
Okay.
previously in Vula, we had what were called forums, and then with the last Vula update, they became discussions, and the discussion tool in both Vula and Amathuba is very similar.
Oh, sorry. Yes. Okay. Sorry. My question was on Amathuba, the difference between a forum and a topic.
Between a forum and a topic, think of it as a room and then a conversation within the room.
Okay, so the forum is the room.
Yeah, that's kind of my how I think of structuring them. I wouldn't describe that as technical, but that's how I work with it.
I get it. Thank you very much.
What you can do though is that like you could create a forum and then you can allow students to create topics within it.
Yes.
So that they can raise conversations. But in terms of like roles and responsibilities, generally students can't raise forums.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much.
Can I ask on the test and quizzes, can you let the students get auto feedback?
Yes. Absolutely. When you add because I mean, particularly if your MCQs and your other short answer questions, you are grading, you can automatically grade. And so you can set with that whether or not you want your students to receive immediate feedback, whether you want feedback after a certain date or time, and how many times they can take a particular assessment. So it does allow you to do all of those things.
Thank you, Shonali. Hello.
Hi, we can hear you perfectly.
Awesome. Yes, thank you for also answering the questions. So as I said that with the question tool, so we've now explored how you would add a new question using the different sets of options for questioning. And then there's also sections. You can have different sections within your quiz. And then there's also question pool, which essentially allows for randomizing the questions where, you know, the different students can see the different ordering to help really reduce the potential for them to cheat. So for example, you can set a question pool that draws, you know, 4 questions, but it would reorder them. And, you know, from a pool of 10 questions, it would have them be randomized. So let me go back. So yes, so then you within your quizzes, you can also, there's the description, and it, as I mentioned, that it's important to have a description and to make sure that you've checked it and enabled it to be on. And really, maybe for example, you say this assessment is due, because it would have the time of when they should do the quiz, the exact day for them to do the quiz, Thursday, 19 May 2022. And then maybe we'll say they should do it before 11:55 p.m. And you give them further instructions on how long maybe the quiz will take, the duration of the quiz, maybe once you click begin, you will have this amount of time. Once you click begin assessment, then it will tell them you have this amount of time, maybe 2 hours. And then you also tell them the number of times that you're allowing them to do this quiz. Is it only one submission? Are they able to improve? Can they take it, like how many times can they take this quiz? So essentially the description bar would really help, guide the students on how they would do the quiz and what's the important details that they need to know. And then here, really it's the page header, a footer that you want to, it really depends to you. And then are you allowing hints? Do you want to receive a notification email? And then another thing to also note here is that it can be linked to the grades. You can, they can immediately receive their marks upon auto publish attempt results immediately upon completion. And it can be associated with the grade item. As we said, best practice is for you to first have your grades and groups sorted, set up before you actually would set up the quiz tool. So it's synchronized maybe with your grade book and the number of attempts that your students will have. And then, so it all depends on you and the restrictions that you want them to have. So this will give you the options for the restrictions. So when is it due? Until when will it expire and all that? And the release conditions. So is there further questions on the quiz tool? I'm not seeing.
Hi, yes,
people
sorry.
unmute. Yes.
I wanted to ask, it's Shanaz, I wanted to ask, does it have the same exceptions and time deliveries that we would have, like for some students who require more time?
Yakuluntu, you okay to answer that? Or would you like me to take it?
So
what is the question? Can you repeat?
I just wanted to know, does it have the same exceptions that you could add, like Vula would have if you had a student who required more time than the rest, or maybe they are doing it and at a different day, so you could go in on the individual student and adjust their times in comparison to the rest of the class?
Yes, there is special access, but I'd need your guidance, Shonali, on where we would get the special access where.
I'm going to
yes.
Sure. I'm going to suggest we don't do that right now because it's 11:35. But we can in fact do that. The system does allow it. It is in, I just want to check exactly where it hides because it is in a slightly different place, I think. I think it's under release conditions. But what I do want to suggest, Yakulunti, given the time, is shall we push the assignments to tomorrow?
Yes.
Yes, let's
think
push the assignments section to tomorrow. So we've done discussions today, we've done tests and quizzes today. And I think what I want to just do is say, are there any like pressing questions in the text chat? Or anyone who'd like to unmute with any pressing questions? Okay, I'm not seeing anybody unmuting. Not seeing anyone unmuting. I don't think there's anything in the text chat. Okay, folks, I want to say thank you very, very much to everyone for joining us in today's session. What I would like to encourage you to do tonight, please feel free. The site that we were using today is very much there for you to be able to go and play around in a little bit. So please feel free. If you want to do something tonight, like try and add a forum to a discussion, try and add a thread to a forum. If you want to go and if you want to try some of the tests and quizzes that we've got set up in there as a student, just you can change yourself actually in the class list to a student, and you can give it a try as a student, and then tomorrow during the session we'll turn you back to a staff member, or you can reach out to one of us and we'll turn you back to a staff member. But please feel free to play around a little bit in the site tomorrow or today, and then we'll see you tomorrow further. Our focus for tomorrow is some of the communications tools in Amathuba and the content tools. So how do you add content and make it visible to your students? Folks, any questions before we close? Okay, thank you so much, colleagues. We will send to everybody at the end of tomorrow a little evaluation for the session, but also if you have any feedback for us tomorrow that you'd like us to take on board as we do the session, please feel free to reach out to either Yakuluntu, Nadine, or myself, and we'll work with the feedback you give us about how to pace tomorrow's session. Thanks everyone, have a lovely rest of your day, and we will see you all tomorrow.